dans la pure contemplation, dans la pure poésie. À d'autres moments, une seule image occupe la page et regardez comment cette trace, ce sang qui coule, retrouve une des formes qu'on avait beaucoup plus tôt dans le chapitre. Alors, je ne suis pas ici pour monologuer, pour faire une conférence sur The Art of Craig Thompson, mais pour savoir comment, dans le moment de l'élaboration de cette histoire, comment ces pages se sont conçues. Est-ce que pour toi il y a d'abord un scénario écrit, ou est-ce que ça prend immédiatement la forme d'un découpage graphique? Est-ce que l'organisation de ces pages est quelque chose qui te vient très vite ou que tu as revu à différentes reprises? Voilà un petit peu les questions que je me suis posées par rapport à cette élaboration très longue. Il y a bien sûr le temps de l'exécution graphique, mais il y a aussi cette organisation qui semble vraiment inséparable du médium bande dessinée.
Well, it begins with images, as I was describing it, Dodola and Zam emerging in my sketchbooks from the first or second page, just as a doodle, essentially. But a doodle I responded to. So sort of images, you start by collecting images, almost like abstract sort of symbols from a dream. It's almost like a Jungian sort of process where you're sifting around for the right symbols. And then from there, start tracing back. Like I said with the Dola and Zam, I'm responding to the image of them, not knowing where they lived or what they did or what story shaped them. And those start to stream in later. But then when I'm writing, it's drawing. It's never divorced from drawing. I'm always writing and drawing simultaneously. And I don't think I could just write. I feel very clunky with words and clumsy and inarticulate. With pictures, I feel slightly more graceful. But also, yeah, pictures don't hold my interest on their own. They hold my interest in sequence and in synthesis with text. What was the second part of your question?
Comment est-ce que le travail s'organise pour toi? Par exemple, est-ce que l'organisation d'une page comme celle-là vient tout de suite, ou est-ce que c'est de nombreux essais qui ont conduit, que tu essayes plusieurs variantes?
Well, with Habibi, at a certain point I was just ready to write. So I just sat down and started drawing the first panel in my sketchbooks, and then the second panel and the third panel. So I was working in a very stream of conscious way. But that only served me up to a certain point. Eventually I got blocked. And going back to look at everything I'd done, it just felt very flat and lifeless, very linear. And in like photography courses or probably basic drawing courses, they always tell you to start with a frame and then compose within that frame. And that's what I was really searching for with the book, was like a framework. And I found it in the magic squares. And I actually, it was when I was coming to Angoulême, I think in 2005, that I rediscovered that magic squares in my notebooks, and it was the 3x3 magic squares. I guess it's a spoiler for people who haven't seen the book yet, but it's just the basic framework for the book. It's like a mystical Sudoku, like this pre-Islamic talisman from North Africa that has 9 squares where each square embodies an Arabic letter and its corresponding numeric value. And when I saw that symbol, I started to think of that as a skeleton for the book. And I really needed that, and I needed that structure. It's like part of the problem after Blankets is I thought that fiction would be far easier than autobio, because autobio is vulnerable and whatnot. But in fact, at least with autobio, the story already exists, and you just choose how to tell it. And with fiction, the possibilities are limitless. And so there's a paralysis that can happen in that freedom, which I think is the American experience. We have all this freedom and we don't know what to do with it, so we just waste it, we squander it. And what I actually needed was some structure. I needed this cage to impose on the book, and once I had that, I was able to build within that.
Je prolonge un peu ce que tu viens de dire, et par une question qui est presque une question de métier, mais je pense qu'il y a des dessinateurs et des scénaristes ou des éditeurs qui sont dans cette salle, et donc ça les intéressera sans doute. Il existe une différence immense entre le temps du lecteur et le temps de l'auteur. Quand un livre est aussi ample que Habibi, 7 ans pour le réaliser, 2 ou 3 soirées pour le lire, ou peut-être une journée complète pour ceux qui ont du temps devant eux. Comment être sûr que l'histoire va garder sa cohérence, son rythme, sa fluidité, à l'intérieur d'un processus de travail si long, avec tous les doutes qui s'insinuent. Comment es-tu sûr que l'histoire, insensiblement, ne va pas suivre le mouvement de ta propre vie pendant ces 7 années et perdre l'impulsion initiale? Je pense à une histoire, c'est une parenthèse, mais je pense qu'elle peut éclairer, une histoire que racontait Alfred Hitchcock. Il disait, pour moi, un film, c'est d'abord une impulsion qui pourrait tenir en une phrase ou deux. Et puis, il y a le scénario, les couches de scénario, les dialogues, les gens qui interviennent dessus, le choix des acteurs, le choix des décors, la réalisation, les difficultés, la pluie qui arrive quand il ne faudrait pas, le montage, le producteur qui intervient. Puis un jour, le film est en salle, et une jeune fille va voir le film, et sa mère lui dit « Comment c'était ?» Et elle raconte 2 phrases. Et si le film est réussi, ce sont les 2 phrases que j'avais au début. Et donc je pense qu'il y a là quelque chose de profond et de très difficile pour un auteur, et particulièrement difficile dans un cas comme le tien, avec cette ampleur de vue, c'est comment garder au fond de soi, à travers toute la lenteur de l'exécution, l'énergie de l'impulsion initiale. Comment rester dans le même récit que le lecteur, lui, lira infiniment rapidement.
No, it's a great question. Yeah, Amir's excited too. One, I don't think you ever know if it's going to come together. I mean, I guess there is that element of risk. I mean, that's part of the pleasure. The way I work is I thumbnail the book in very detailed drawings, which you got to see as I was working. So actually, I worked for 2 years writing Habibi before I ever set ink on paper for a final page. And when I'm writing, again, it's a drawn version, so it's a roughly drawn. The way, if people have seen the Spiegelman exhibit, he drew like so many different variations of the same pages. But I draw a very rough version of the book, and then I edit it, and I cut out hundreds of pages and revise them. So by the point I'm ready to start drawing, in a way, the book is finished for me. For myself as an author, I've written it through to the end, and I guess I could just discard it. But in fact, then I go in and I start making the final drawing so that it's pretty for other people to look at. And in both the case of Blankets and Habibi, I never could figure out the ending. Like, never at any point in the writing process did I know how it would end. And so with Habibi, I finally just resolved to just start drawing the book, the final art, and in hopes that the ending would reveal itself when I got to it. And 3-4 years went by. It was about 3 years of final art. When I was reaching the ending, the last 6 chapters, the final 3rd act of the book, and I still was clueless at that point. I mean, at that point, 5 years had gone by in my life, and I guess I hadn't even learned the lessons in my real life that would reveal the answer for the story. So I had to take another 5 months off and just be neurotic and write 10 different endings for the book and discard hundreds of pages. And that's part of the problem of fiction, is that you're just making up lies. And in the midst of like a pile of lies, you have to excavate like a kernel of truth. And that's what you're searching for. And when you find it, you know it. It resonates. But you just have to keep fighting for it. And again, the sort of romantic relationship analogy. I don't know if anybody really knows that in relationships, when they commit to them, that it will work out. But they sort of have to believe in something a little bigger, outside of themselves, outside of the relationship. That just if they do commit to this and really work at it, that there's going to be some sort of revelation.